Well, thank you, Cedric, for that introduction. And I can't tell you how much I've appreciated the collaboration with you and Cheryl and all the folks at LAM, too. So let me present to you a little bit and share with you about our project. And I've got I've got slides and I've got a multimedia presentation as well. So I just want to time myself a little bit and see if I can get the slides shared with you. Just a second. And I will share my screen. There we go. And let me get the slides up here. And can everyone see the slides? Just give me a thumbs up or say yes, thank you very much there. Okay, so let me just say that, okay, so this is the Co-Share project. Co-Share stands for Co-Design of Services for Health and Reentry. It was a pilot project that LAM and RAND jointly got funded from the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. The goal of the project was to bring individuals released from jail together with varied service providers they rely on to work together on how to improve health and reentry services in LA County. And one of the reasons that I really appreciate the collaboration with LAM is that it would have been impossible for us to conduct this study and have the success that we did without a strong community partner and I appreciate your word, Cedric, about me being flexible, but also a community partner that understands research and, and within that flexibility also keep, an understanding of what we're trying to learn and how we can do that in a way that can be replicable in other settings and hopefully in other communities. So I understand that you've already heard in past presentations from Diana Zuniga about the Alternatives to Incarceration work group and how you can plug into grassroots efforts underway for the reentry population, and from Joe Paul from LARP, who actually was involved also as a service participant in the Co-Share project. And you heard from him on the overall policy and politics landscape of the reentry system in LA County. So I hope I got that right, Cheryl. So my goal today is to present the Co-Share project, not just as an example of improving services for individuals returning to community from jail, who themselves represent a traumatized population that requires a range of support for, as we know, for successful reentry, but also as one framework among others, and not the only, but one framework that you can consider for engaging those who we're trying to serve and engage them directly into the redesign and change of the service system. So let me just kind of give you an understanding of some of the problems. And I think these are probably, all of you are active in the community and in providing services and helping to connect people to services. You probably, you live these problems firsthand every day. So the problems with community engagement and service improvement is we know safety net services in the U.S. are notoriously fragmented. And especially so in the service areas that LAM and you guys are all focused on in Willowbrook and Westmont, West Athens, and in many communities, and especially so for returning citizens. And efforts to improve health and reentry services are largely designed from the perspective of service providers, which, we can include ourselves in that, but and system level decision makers, people at the county and state level, but not so much from the perspective of directly from the individuals who are experiencing those services. And also that and for healthcare, and I think in a lot of service sectors too, is struggle to how do you meaningfully engage patients and clients and other service users in improvement. Typically that requires understanding our service lingo, our quality improvement frameworks, if we're using continuous quality improvement, lean engagement, or quality assurance techniques. How can you engage someone who's just getting services and take advantage of their perspective? In my work previous to working with Cedric and Cheryl on this project, I've been involved in a number of community-based participatory research projects around in South LA, in SPA 6, also in SPA 8, around participating with community members around improving depression care in those communities. And we were really good at engaging community groups and even individuals in that study and the research project, and getting people around the table. But when the goal was to design and adapt improvements and what we wanted to change, we didn't really have good tools for doing that and working hand in hand to do that. So when experience-based co-design, which I'll be talking about in more detail, came around and we found out about that, we looked at it as a process that could take that community engagement and goodwill and transform that into collective priorities, action, and improvement. And I will talk a little bit about how that works. I mean, in overall, also, this is our typical model of community change, right? It's a traditional one where it's top down. The policymakers make rules and they fund systems, and then the rest of us get that money. Community-based organizations, faith-based organizations, local government programs, we get that money and those rules, and then we try to serve community service members, right? And so that new policy and programs come into place, and we all kind of try to get in line and use those resources to improve community members. Well, an engaged model is when the community, and this is also what often happens and what we actually try to strive for in a lot of our work. And I think from what Cheryl has described is kind of also some of the work that you guys are trying to do is you're trying to use those resources, but also inform policymakers and the program funders about what it takes and what would be helpful for you to do your work. And so with the co-share project and experience-based co-design, you can kind of consider it a hyper-engaged model of community change, where we're taking those members receiving services, those we're trying to help, right? And who are going through our service process and journeys through our service systems, we're getting their input directly into improvement for what we're doing at the community level, and that actually bolsters the impact that can be made with policymakers. So with that, let me also kind of situate where this experience-based co-design approach fits within the spectrum of community participation. And here we're looking to try to get to meaningful engagement. And all of these forms are meaningful engagement to some degree. So a lot of times, we look to ask people what's helpful. We do focus groups. We just talk to people as they're getting services. That's informing us. Sometimes we bring them on, community members, to consult on services. Then maybe we can involve them as and maybe some of you are kind of peer service providers, and then which also requires some knowledge of the service system and a lot of onboarding to get to be able to meaningfully engage in that type of role. And then experience-based co-design pushes it more towards, the fuller participation of collaborating and empowering people, letting them really have a voice in the process. So now let me get right into and give you a flavor for what the co-share project was and what the process is. So really the goal of the process of the co-share project was to pilot a new method called experience-based co-design, and to do three things: bring returning individuals who are released from jail within the past year from the project, with service providers of different agencies in LA County, to share their experiences and then also identify priority and solutions for improving health and reentry services. And experience-based co-design was well suited to do that. And in general, as I'll kind of explain, is well suited to community engaged services change. So first, it's experience. It combines, a user-centered orientation, this experience-based, with a collaborative change process, and that's the co-design. And it also assumes that and takes as its basis the fact that participants, including both the returning individuals and service users in the community, as well as service providers, are experts in their own experience. And the co-design also helps overcome some typical interagency barriers to change in community services when you try to bring a lot of different service providers, as we had in the co-share project, people who are doing employment, people who are doing housing, help, people who are doing health and mental health and substance abuse treatment and support. When you bring all those agencies together, there's typically some friction, as we all know. And this helps, the co-design helps by focusing everyone's attention and improvement around the experience of the service users. And as I'll show you in a film that we did, in a very powerful, direct way. But also does that while not forgetting the importance of the experience and knowledge of the system of service providers and what service providers bring to the table, and that community members, people, service users might not understand is going, and constraints and the structures that service providers are trying to work within. And the process focuses on taking those experiences and trying to understand what are the high and low touch points of people's experiences, either in providing or receiving services. And the nice thing also about this approach is that it doesn't require, lots of technical knowledge or specific high degrees of, literacy or months of trying to understand how to do a particular type of, quality improvement approach. It's based on some very accessible group facilitation exercises and activities that almost anyone can engage in. And I'll also just say that co-share was a unique experience-based co-design project. It was the first experience-based co-design project in the US. So we were the first to do this. It's a model and an approach that's been started in the UK and used tried and tested in other countries. So this is the first time that was used in the US. And then in terms of experience-based co-design, it was unique for that approach, and that we took it and applied it to a whole community-wide system. And before the co-share project, it was typically used, it was much more focused and very effective at changing, let's say, for a particular health clinic or a particular mental health program, bringing the providers and the service providers and the clients for that particular program together. Here, we were trying to do it for the whole reentry system in LA. And as you know, and as you heard in probably the past two presentations that Cheryl had people come in to tell you about, LA is the reentry system. LA is huge, but also the reentry system is just a kind of a massive, complex undertaking as well. So before I go further in this, I want to kind of show you, kind of give you a feel for how this happened. I'm going to show you this video of returning individual experiences in their own words that was made through interviews with the returning individuals who participated in the project. And so let me just play this for you, and it's just a few minutes. We've edited it down for this presentation. So here, let's start that.
You need to make sure that you share your audio. Up here?
Sure, just a second. Yes, can people hear that?
No, the sound's not playing.
The sound's not coming through.
I know what's wrong. You need to exit your screen. So
okay, thank you. Yes. Okay.
You're still sharing. You need to stop your sharing.
Okay. I thought I was sharing my screen.
You are. You need to stop the share. You need to do it over again.
Okay, thank you. If you could walk me through that, that would be great. Here, I'll stop the share.
Here, I'll.
There you go.
There we go. Okay, so hit the share screen button again.
Okay, great.
But at the bottom left-hand corner, you're going to click
Share sound.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I really appreciate that, Ken.
No problem.
Let's try that over again. Okay. And let's see. Oh. Okay, I can do this. There. And then let me know with the thumbs up. And
before I got released, nobody came to me and offered me no help with any kind of re-entry into the community programs. Yeah. They didn't offer me anything in the form of help as far as shelter or job placement or money to even find a job.
You need a drop-in center, a drop-in center that's gonna sign you up. And not just sign you up, but make sure you get there. You know what I mean? Transportation and everything. This drop-in center has to be a place where you can come and everything, your issues, they're gonna deal with it that day, not put you on hold, not tell you to come back, but address that. Because they don't know if you're gonna go out that door and be lost for the rest of your life.
You know, Project 180 is right here. We come to house you and make sure that you have a roof and 3 squares meal. I eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner there. So we make sure you have food to eat, hot meals, a house to live in. So that's like taking a lot of weight off your shoulders.
Like, I have the skills, I have the experience, I have the motivation, the drive, whatever you want to call it. I have everything that you as an employer would want in an employee until you read my background. Yeah. And my background hits and it's just like, I'm sorry, we can't hire you.
I'm at JWCH Wesley. That's why I prefer to go, because I prefer to go there because the doctor's not gonna rush me out the door. She don't got 1,200 people to see. She not gonna diagnose me from head to toe in 2.3 seconds and then tell me what's ailing me. And
the problem I had was when I got out, it took a long time for me to finally get my doctor. I got out, I went in for the intake, and then you had to come back 2 weeks, and then you had to come back another 2 weeks. So by the time I was able to get some type of psychiatrist or anything like that, or a regular doctor, it would have been a month and a half.
The only thing that I would say is don't give up, be persistent, and cherish what you got, man, because if you don't stay strong, you'll lose.
So I just want to say that this is a critical piece of the experience-based co-design project, is for to get people to be comfortable in sharing in their own words in the process and being seen in the process. And one way of doing it is through making this video early on. And that is shown at different points in the process to center, like I said, the focus is on redesigning it for the perspective of and focusing the redesign efforts on the experience of the people directly receiving those services. And I'll when I do a quick run through on the steps in the experience-based co-design process, I will kind of just let you tell you about what that impact was for different people. And here I'll just run through very quickly some of the nuts and bolts of the co-share study. We had 52 returning individuals. We started with 37, but as most community engaged processes, and this was a process that went on for over a year, we let people come on and off the bus. And this is another reason why LAM was so important, is because, and Cedric, a big shout out to you, was to really engage, not only recruit those returning individuals, but also keep them coming back and recruiting other people into the process as we went along. We had a very, we were bringing in people. These were adults that were, kind of matched as best we could the characteristics of many of the returning adult individuals into the South LA area. Most had high school or lower education. Many, as you can imagine, were incarcerated more than once. And several were homeless or at severe risk of homelessness. And then we also had engaged 23 service providers from 11 agencies who really engaged throughout the entire process, who really thought were really energized to engage with their clients in this particular way, not as clients, but more as equals, and having the time to reflect with them in a kind of a structured, thoughtful process to understand, well, what are the priorities and how can we improve the system? And you can see right there all the different types of agencies that we had involved, as well as LARP. So I'll just give you the big picture of the experience-based co-design process is gathering experiences, identifying and gathering experiences of both the service users and service providers, identifying priorities, and then bringing everyone together to co-design solutions. So you can kind of think of that also as kind of a framework for community engaged change. And this happens quite a bit, and this is, if you think about it, that part of it is not rocket science. We're always gathering experiences, trying to identify priorities, and then sometimes working together or with even service users and community members to design solutions together. But the EBCD kind of gives a little bit, gives more of a structure and a process to doing that. So this is how it played out in the co-share project and gathering experiences. We did separate focus groups with returning individuals. And then from those, we invited certain people who had different types of experiences with receiving health and reentry services to do interviews, which we filmed, and then created the discussion film that you just saw. Actually, it was that was cut down to 3 minutes. It was about 25 minutes. And then we did separate focus groups with service providers. And then we had, and that was gathering the experiences. And there are many ways of gathering experiences as well, but those were the two main ones we used in co-share. And then identifying priorities, we had a feedback event for the returning individuals. And I'll talk a little bit about that. A lot happens there. This is also when the film is shown to the returning individuals themselves at the feedback session. And maybe Cedric, afterwards you can talk, and Cheryl also, about this. But Cedric, you were there. It was, when we showed the film to the group, we weren't quite sure what the response would be. And after it ended, we, there was some silence, and then the participants spontaneously clapped. And it turned out to be just a very powerful, validating experience for them, and just all of a sudden opened up a rich discussion of their own experiences, how it related to the film or different experiences. And out of that feedback event, it was very focused to get, at the end, a list of priorities of what are the things that need to change. And then with the service providers, we identified those lists of priorities from the focus groups. And then where the magic happened was at a joint event where the returning individuals and service providers came together. And the first thing we did was show that film, again, like I said, to ground the focus in the journey of returning individuals back to community and their experiences. And then the focus of that joint event was specifically to come up with a list of joint priorities based on and sharing of experiences and joint priorities that both groups could decide, could agree to. And then from that, we moved into, okay, we've got our joint priorities, let's co-design solutions. So we broke up we had 4 joint priorities. We had 4 work groups, mixed groups. Each group was mixed with both returning individuals and service providers that met for several sessions. And then from those, they developed principles and suggestions and recommended solutions for each of their priority areas. And then after that, we had a closure event at which we talked about the lessons learned and the experience in the process, the experience-based co-design process itself, as well as fed back the recommendations for improvement. So let me also give you a sense of what are these group facilitated exercises? What do they do besides the film, watching the film, having rich discussions of experience around that? There's also in the feedback event for the returning citizens, we did this emotional mapping exercise. And what we do is we from the film, we identified 10 reentry components, and you'll see them listed there. And then what we did is we had different experiences within each one of those components. Like, as you can see, the first one being jail, leaving jail. And underneath that, we had things that happen after that. Getting help with medical and health problems, getting help with mental health problems, getting help preparing to leave jail, and having a place to stay right out of jail. And then and this is a very kinetic, movement-oriented activity. Everyone got out of their chairs and they went up to this board on the wall, and they moved the different pieces of the experience, either higher if it was a really high priority, or lower if it was a low priority, or what we call a low touch point, something that was not as important, or a bad situation. So they did that, and also with that, and then they had these sticky notes, as you can see, where they could write other things about how that process felt, or other experiences, and they could stick that up there. And the really nice thing about this is it got people to talk as they were at the board. Why should something be higher or lower? And then afterwards, everyone sat back down and we went through the whole reentry journey, and all of these asking why something was higher or lower and what the experiences were. And then by the end, it was pretty obvious which of these parts of the experience should be their priorities. And I'll talk a little bit about what some of the general experiences were. Actually, I won't go into a lot of detail because I know I'm kind of running a little overtime here, but the general experiences from returning individuals, like in that rich discussion, talked a lot about the desire for normalization, how overwhelming and exhaustive the reentry process is, being seen and treated as an individual with human potential rather than getting cookie cutter plans and services, and the fact that a lot of service providers are just overloaded. Also limited support or resources, especially services that only last for a year, as you heard in the film. Like some of those, like where are you going to go in it? After your housing runs out, I don't know. And also, we had quite a few older people in our participants. And they face more health issues and job discrimination. These kind of like touch points, like we were saying. What are the touch points in this journey? And then also kind of touch points from the experience from service providers are, it's challenging identifying, coordinating multiple sets of needs for people. They really focus on that immediate transition upon release from jail is critical and challenging. And they also talked about the influx of funding, and this was a few years ago, for reentry and services in Los Angeles County, which was both a challenge, an opportunity, but also posed some challenges in how to utilize those resources the best ways. And just as a summary for you, you can read the report, but the 4 priority areas there are on the right: the pre-release process, the one-stop service hubs, housing, and long-term support. And those were the kind of the key priorities. And on the right were some of the, highlights of the recommended solutions and design principles for each of these. This was a pilot project, so where we didn't get to go, and where a lot of the community, the EBCD projects go, is then they go into co-implementation. And so this is something, as a pilot project, we weren't able to get to. Partly also, our focus was around the whole service system. So, an implementation project is something that we're hoping to look at, where we can actually go into one of these, like let's say one-stop service hubs, and really do some work in there. But you can see this is what comes out of the this participatory experience-based co-design process. Some of these things on the right here, recommended solutions, are things that have been in the hopper and talked about a lot. Others were fairly new and insights, but all the participants kind of felt in the end that that having it grounded in their experience and prioritizing the types of solutions really gave those added weight and energy in terms of pushing an agenda forward. So just to kind of end, and then I'd love to hear any questions that you have, but we did interview people, both service users and providers, about their experiences. And so this is what they said it was like for them, that and like I said, this was over a year-long process. The returning individuals really liked the camaraderie and sharing their experiences with others. Many said that this was the first time that they had actually been able to come together with other returning individuals and just have these conversations about their experiences, knowing that they're not alone when they're struggling, and also connecting with service providers, and felt like they were interacting and being heard, and that providers were actually listening. And also, the possibility of that they could give back and that they could help improve services for the next future people who have to, go through the reentry experience. And for some of these, it was a really powerful, even for one person, life-changing experience. What was it like for service providers? They liked the fact that, that they were, like I said, clients and service providers were able to get together in more than one room. And they also networked and provided information to each other. That happened a lot. Both among the service providers, hey, are you doing that? I didn't know that program was available, that type of thing, as well as with specific returning individuals. Once they got to know each other and trust each other a lot more over time, the returning and the service provider able to actually help returning individuals in the study, and also that it was respectful. And that's one thing that structured process helps to do, is to create not only a safe space but a respectful space. And that it was very challenging, and there were very hard, difficult conversations and strong emotions that came up. But through building that, within each group, kind of understand their own priorities, and then coming together kind of at an equal status, it makes it a very respectful and productive exchange. And as one service provider said, it was a real authentic atmosphere of sharing. So lessons learned from implementing experience-based co-design in this project was really the strength in engaging both service providers and particularly, community members and service users who are being served. And like I said, many returning individuals felt like it really validated their experience. Another thing that happened, very powerful, after the film was shown at the joint event, the very first speaker was a service provider who thanked the returning participants for being so candid and courageous to put their stories and share their stories on film. And that was and talk about validation for the returning individuals. That was quite powerful. Like most authentic community engagement, this is another thing. It takes time and effort to build that trust and work together. And we found too, this community-wide scope was both a strength because they could really identify the different pieces of the system that need to be improved together, but also was quite a challenge. And that's why sometimes when it gets to the implementation stage and actual changing, it's it's helpful to focus more into one particular area. And lastly, the strength of a community engaged change, whether it be using kind of an experience-based co-design approach or other approaches, kind of some of the bottom line kind of findings from the co-share project was that trust is key, and it's a very precious commodity. That the more we can use these type of processes to get empower community individuals to be part of the change and give voice. And as we heard, it was very strongly came out too from the returning individuals is hope. And that hope is key to change. And also that participation and level of engagement keeps that change relevant and effective. And ultimately where we all want to be is sustainable improvement in our communities. So if you want to read more about this particular project and the experience-based co-design process in general, we have this report. It's pretty thick, but it's very detailed. We also have a 2-page in the middle there, a 2-page brief and summary of the project, as well as there was in RAND, where I work, is a nonprofit organization that does these type of projects and research, but produces a magazine that describes for the general public about what we do. And there was an article focusing on one participant's experience in the project. So, if you're interested in that, Cheryl and Cedric could easily hook you up or distribute that to the group if you're interested. So I'm open for any questions or comments, and I'll leave it to Cheryl. I guess I'll leave it to you to moderate.
Hi, it's Dawn. Cheryl I'm here to assist. I'm going to step in Cheryl's place right now. So, Great. Hello, I'm Dawn.
Hi, Dawn.
I met you before at one of the meetings we had at the church, I think 2 years ago. I can't remember what it was called.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I'll remember it too. Yeah.
Yes. So do we have any questions? This was very good information. And thank you so much for the work that you have done and getting the information from the people that are actually living the lived experience. So thank you so much. So do we have any questions? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions.
Okay, go for it. We can't hear you. You're on mute. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you. Hi, Peter Mendel. You very insightful information today, so thank you so much. Now, the RAND Corporation, it's supposed to help with research and analysis, correct?
That's right. So we're a nonprofit research institute. We're based in Santa Monica. And so we have a public mission to do policy research and analysis. Yeah.
All right. So, my name is Dr. Mello Desire, and we primarily focus on youth and mental health. So a lot of the research RAND has done actually help with a lot of mental health and resources, especially in SPA 6. My question is, Michael Rich, when I looked, I realized you don't have a lot of diverse clientele to relate to people who have experienced high prison rate in areas of high homelessness, especially with the Black communities. So I wanted to know, do you have a research team that is diverse of lived experience people concerning Black and Brown that can actually implement proper services? Because we still have issues with the implementation part, especially with West Athens. So resources can actually get permanent housing rapidly, mental health, especially suicide prevention. There are a lot of lack of resources, a lot of empty land. So how can RAND help finish that implementation as where we can actually have empowerment and generational wealth for especially the Black communities of South LA?
That is a great question, and we ask ourselves that all the time. And you'll see if you go to the RAND.org website, we do research in all different types of areas, and actually RAND got its start doing foreign policy research and national security research way back in the 50s, and then in the 60s we, this was way before my time, expanded and now into social and economic policy. And so now health, education, labor, the social policy is the largest areas that RAND focuses on. In terms of diversity, we, like most organizations, have really and professional organizations have struggled with diversity, but we have focused a lot, even before kind of the recent push in the last year or two. We've been focusing a lot on that and bringing in people who, because we're mostly researchers, right? At the core of what RAND does is researchers and have research degrees and stuff like that. So we've been really focusing on making sure that our research staff is more diverse. Some of those people have more lived experiences in the communities that we're trying to help, and so or at least have that cultural and ethnic and racial background to help do that, and also to make sure that the work that the rest of us really want to do as allies to community are relevant. So I know, like Cheryl and Cedric, Malcolm Williams, and we've got there are diverse teams, right? But the other way that we really try to do this is in collaboration and partnership. And so in the past, so I mentioned a little bit about the community-based participatory research that we do. That really started about, I would say, 10, 15 years ago. And probably that impact, you kind of got some of those resources from some of our projects is we're in LA County, right? What we're doing should only be for a national program in Washington. So we've done real work to do outreach, collaborate as partners. So that's really our push too, is have deep collaboration, not just one-off, hey, can you help us with this study, type of thing, but really do, where who we partner with, like, and, Cheryl and Cedric could talk about this, is that, we come in, and usually is like, oh, we come in, we know research and all that, and the community knows community. But, and so together we're stronger, but at the same time, we're looking to share our experience and knowledge with community partners so that they become better researchers and can do research themselves, right? And also help disseminate that research, and also that we become, educated in the community as well. So we kind of try to do it from both angles. What can RAND do? We can't do direct service because we're set up to do research, and we can't do that as well. But where we really try to have our impact is to help in our community-based work, is to help communities research the problems, identify the issues and research the problems that they see as most concerned, not what we see, but what they see, and then helping drive the research and the policy agendas around that. So that's, I don't know if there's something more specific I can give.
Yeah, I was just focusing on the leadership team primarily, the 19 people that you have for them to be diverse. But I didn't want to take too much time. I also looked at the Tomorrow Demands Today campaign. Yes. I didn't know, can I know a little bit more about that? And then last question, how much federal funding does RAND receive? If that's the answer.
Yeah. It's actually on our website, and I forget, the largest chunk of our funding is federal and state government, research grants. And then we do a lot of foundation grants too. Very little, because we're in the public interest and all our research is public, very little is kind of privately sponsored. But even privately sponsored research that we do has to be one of our conditions for doing it, because we're not a consulting group, we're a research group, we're a public research group, has to be shared publicly on our website. In terms of, I want to make sure I get quickly to all your questions there. So in terms of our leadership, top leadership, Michael Rich is white, but we have more people at the program manager level and director level who are diverse. So that is improving, and particularly Anita Chandra is a real, I would say, force within that for RAND for getting diversity. And quickly remind me, what was your other question?
I was looking for the funding on the website. It's not on the website. If you can, probably.
I can forward that to you. If you, and I'll look at the website. If not, I'll forward you the information. Oh, the other thing, the Tomorrow is Today campaign. So that is to, since we have a very small endowment because we're not like a university. So that is to try to give us endowments so that if we can't get funding, let's say from a government program, a research program, or from a foundation to do something that we think is important, we want the resources to do that. And one of the things, I can forward this to you too, we just got a huge, I think it was it is one of the biggest donations that we've had in a long time, was $10 million to fund an LA County Housing and Homelessness Research Center. And that just started a few months ago, and they're standing that up now and having a lot of conversations around with community stakeholders and service providers and county officials about where can RAND best help inform and push the agenda on that. So if you're specifically interested in that, I can share with you I think that's very exciting, because a lot of us who have been doing this community based research and participate in partnering with community groups, a lot of it, housing and homelessness, that's where it's at. Those are the big problems that all of us are dealing with, right? And where a lot of the people with lived experience, unfortunately, that's what they're living through, right? So we were very excited about that. And so any opportunities we can have there to have impact together would be helpful. So Dawn, I'll send you, Cheryl and Cedric, the links for that, as well as for the other question about where our funding comes from. Does that help?
Yes, I just wanted to speak and add a little bit more to what Milo was saying. In regards to representation, we see as far as in the Black communities, we see that there is a lot of top executives as far as whites, and not a lot of diversity. So I think every time we have the opportunity, that's something that we need to speak out on. We need to speak about being more, us as Blacks. When we have these spaces and we have people from organizations, we need to speak out in regards to being more inclusive, bringing Blacks to executive management positions, because the more you have that, it brings more credibility to our communities. And it makes us feel that there's someone in there that can understand and how implementation is. So I think that is something, and we do have degrees and different things of that sort where people are educated to be in these positions. And it's people like you that can take that information back and say, how can we be more inclusive to make sure that we get Blacks and Browns in these positions? And it happens across the board. I hear that conversation when I'm talking to people in regards to housing, that LASA have people that are doing the work implementation, but then they're not taking the information and the suggestions for people of color to be in these management positions that are familiar with the communities, that have a better idea of how to implement these things. So it is very important. It's different than collaboration, than people sitting actually at the table or where the work is being done. So I ask you to take that information back to your top executives and to talk to them about being more inclusive, to bringing people at the top. Because as you can see, you have someone from the community that is looking at your website, looking to see who the players are. And I'm sure she's not the only one, especially right now in this climate that we're in. So I just wanted to add that part right there.
Thanks for mentioning that, Dawn. And I totally appreciate those comments. And for those of us who consider ourselves allies in a lot of these struggles, we've had to, and I participated in the Days of Dialogue that Lamb helped put on, and really had some serious discussions about, kind of what's my role as an ally. And so I really appreciate bringing that up, because we do have these internal discussions. And as you can imagine, every organization, in the past year has had to do something in terms of responding to equity and diversity, even if they were doing it, like I said, we've tried before. I'll just be honest with you too, and kind of some of the internal process here. I've been at RAND for over 20 years. And the problem that RAND itself has in terms of diversity in that respect is not so much that we couldn't attract people of color who have the particular expertise that we need. There are a lot of people who do have them, right? And RAND was able to attract them, but they didn't stay. And it was only, I would say, in the past year or so that the organization got serious about why aren't they staying? And it's not so much that there aren't people out there from diverse communities who could work at RAND. There are. It's just that it wasn't, and not, not out of, it was not feel like a welcoming place.
Thank you.
And so that's what we're dealing with now is, okay, what is it about this place that if you're not from those communities that you're not seeing? And so I appreciate that, because I am going to take that back. We have these DE&I, diversity, equity, inclusion, company, organization-wide forums every few months. And I'll bring that out and say, hey, the community is looking.
Thank you.
Yeah, I definitely will say that.
Real quick, this is Cedric. They did bring me on the Human Subject Protection Committee for the RAND Corporation. I joined in 2017. So I got a feeling of what Peter is talking about. At first, I won't say I felt uncomfortable, but it took folks some getting used to me. But now my opinion is respected. I get to review research. I'm the prisoner representative for the committee. So if there's any studies being done on prisons or prisoners, I'm usually put on a subcommittee and we get to review it for ethics and compliance. So if I see something I think is not right, I can send it back to the researchers to correct it. And my opinion is respected. So it's not an administrative position. It's more of a watchdog position. But like I said, I got brought in. I've been there in October. It'll be 4 years I've been there. So we have monthly meetings. And like I said, I get to vote on all the research now, not just the prison research. So it's been an experience.
And I want to say, Peter, thank you.
I didn't want to be disruptive, but just briefly, Cedric, I need to talk to you concerning Marcel's case, which I put in the chat. So thank you again for the work that you do.
My phone number is in the chat room. Give me a call.
Okay, will do. Thank you.
I want to say, Peter, thank you very much for being honest with that statement. And so, that is where that's the beginning right there, to be honest and to say, I think we have to stop worrying about, are we being politically correct, and address the issues. And then once we can address the issues, then we can, move forward and find out what can we do to resolve it. how can we work past, really resolve these issues and take in the information that we're receiving and implement it for change. So I just want to say thank you for that honesty in regards to acknowledging there were some things in place that weren't welcoming for people of color, specifically Blacks not wanting to stay, especially because RAND is in Los Angeles and, Los Angeles County. And when you're dealing with mass incarceration, you're looking at a lot of Black people that are unfortunately the ones on the opposite end of the impacts of our families and our communities and everything. So thank you for that. Is there anyone else that have any questions or comments or anything?
I have a comment, and it's to Peter.
Okay, sure. Go for it.
Hi, Peter. My name is Cheryl, and I'm with Community Reflections. And my question to you is, first of all of my careers have been very high security careers. And RAND Corporation design, it was a part of the application process that you had to take these tests. And I found it to be more exclusion than inclusion in the questioning. So what has RAND done to modify that? Because what they've done in the past, what I've seen is it excluded people of color. And fortunately for me, I wasn't one of them. I had a clean background, but the questionnaires designed, I didn't feel like they were designed for, other ethnic groups. So what have they done to modify those questionnaires? If we're going to help people re-entry to get back into the workforce, how has RAND modified their application process with these corporations as far as hiring?
So that touches upon, this
goes back to me as far as the 80s. Excuse me for interjecting.
Yeah. And that's an issue. I wish it was just in the 80s that experience was happening. But as we in the film, in the film clip that we had, and then this came up over and over again too, is that if you've got anything on your record, that's used against you, no matter what that was, no matter the context, no matter the that if you were incarcerated, that you served your time, all of that, right? And the employment, and that's a real barrier to employment. That's where we had the recommendation, that the work group came up on, working on expungements. So that's an easier all that stuff is. So what your experience back in the 80s with RAND,
70s and 80s,
the 70s and 80s, unfortunately is still going on today. And I know that because specifically through this project, and the lived experiences of the participants, and also of the service providers who are trying to help people get jobs when they after they're released. So, and I appreciate your question, because while we brought that up in our project and we advocate for change around that in the community, to be honest, until you asked that question, I have not reflected upon what's happening in my own organization at RAND. So I will inquire about that.
That's really important, because the industry that I was in, I was the first Black, the first female, moving up the ranks of the ladder. But it excluded a lot of people just trying to get into the door. And these were careers that I never even saw myself in. I was a diamond buyer. That was the rank that I moved up to, but it took me 5 years of really hard work and proving myself. And not to get off topic, but at the same token, I saw the amount of people that were excluded. And RAND Corporation played a big role in the exclusion part.
Yeah. So I'll inquire about that. And if you are interested in getting some feedback on that, if you could maybe put your email in chat, or
it's already there. Cheryl Rivers Moore at Community Reflections.
Okay.
I'm the vice president and executive director. So in dealing with people and helping people, I'm preparing myself to encounter those kind of questions and people actually coming into contact with employers that deal with RAND Corporation.
So can I don't want to take up too much time with this if other people have questions, but what it would help me, or we could talk about it later, is what in particular was, what were the type of questions that you felt were exclusionary? I
thought a lot of the questions were very stereotypical. Everybody that applies for a job is not a college grad or, even has an AA. But a lot of them were mentally stimulating. But some of the questions were just way out of line, and you just didn't know when you were done with your questionnaire if you even passed the test. They never gave you a scorecard at the end of it all. You just knew if you got the job, you got the job. Yeah. But at some point, it was somewhat intimidating. And at another point, it was insulting. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know, because of being the first woman of color hired in a high-ranking position, that how that was taken into consideration, what I brought to the table as an employee. So because they did not give the feedback, it did not give you any feedback on your RAND, whatever psychological testing that it was. I thought it was somewhat insulting.
Okay. Well, I'll get a follow up with you because, I know I didn't have to take that, thankfully a test like that. So I hope people aren't still having to take that, but I will kind of follow up with you on.
I thought it was racially biased, to be frank.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if
it's still a practice, then why?
Okay.
Because we're here to help those that are going to have great difficulties in getting a job. And I appreciate the work of the RAND Corporation, but I don't appreciate the line of questioning. If you're saying that you're going to help these people of reentry or incarceration, coming from those backgrounds, then I don't know how that's going to happen when your screening process is one to be desired.
Yeah.
For a corporation.
I have just listening to your question. Is there, do they have different, I know that Cedric said that he is a part of, he's sitting on something, I don't want to call it a task force, but he's a part of something at RAND.
Yeah. So we have, in every research institution, whether it's a university, college, or a place like RAND, has what they call an institutional review board for human subjects protection. So that's making sure that all the research is done ethically and with balance for anyone who could be or is being recruited to be a participant in our project. So in order to do that, it's actually a federal requirement that all research organizations and institutions have that. And they also require that for particular studies on particular populations, that you actually have a community community representative with that experience and background who gives input. And so as Cedric said, he serves that, someone who we know is looking for, they said, we need someone who really understands, who has a prisoner background you know, it could help us, especially, you know, as with understanding the research and how to make it ethical and relevant. And so thankfully Cedric, you know, took on that role, and I can say is greatly appreciated for what he provides. Now that's different than, like, as you're saying, which is issues around representation within people who are working and managing RAND.
I see your hand, Obi. I'm gonna say this thought, and then I'll pass it on to you to answer.
Dawn, for some reason I can't hear you.
Can you hear? Let me turn my volume up. Is this better?
Yeah, that's much better.
Okay, I'm sorry, you all. I said maybe what RAND can do, because RAND is, you know, they're having doing research in our communities after these after the research has been done, to have some type of town hall or a meeting for the people that have participated in these research, to see how they felt. Either they can talk about how they felt that the questions were either biased or racially biased or different things of that sort. So that way they can get the feedback from the community in regards to the research and being a part of the research, you know, and just bring the community in. I think if we start bringing, when these things are done with the research, bring the community in instead of one representative, you'll have voices from multiple people, and they will be able to share their experience. And I think that will be able to help the agency grow in regards to hearing the knowledge of what the community is thinking. And then also hear the residents can also hear what the research has brought forth, you know, on their end. So I think that may be something that you can take back to your executives, to get the community members more involved, instead of you know, they're doing the research and then that's it. I think if we build more of a partnership and then they understand, I think we can get a lot more out of what needs to be done.
Yeah, and like I mentioned, we're doing more community-based partnership, you know, starting around 10, 15 years ago. And it was particularly based on that insight.
Okay.
Right? That if we just come, as like a lot of university researchers do, and we just come into the community and try to get data, and then we get to do the analysis and pontificate on what we think, right? And that's the same. And it doesn't matter if it's a white researcher or a person of color researcher from that community. You know, that was not effective, as well as, you know, probably unethical. So in all our projects, like in this one, we do like this co-share project ended with a closure session in which we did exactly that, where we brought everyone together to hear about the results, and all, you know, not only, like I said, different people were community members and service providers were involved along the way, but to hear it as a group and to give feedback on the results. So the report on our website reflects the community feedback of those people. And I know for communities, partners in care was another one where we actually, you know, the co-leads of the project was not only a researcher, Ken Wells, who's at UCLA and with and RAND, but Loretta Jones, as you brought up, she was actually the co-principal investigator of that. So, and then we did, and the other ones that I've done is we did a whole community forum on the results of a project. So we try to build that in with individual projects, but what you're saying also rings a bell in my head, is that we probably haven't done a good job communicating to the community as a whole. A lot of our based work, right, is how can we get the word out about what we've done, broader set of communities. So maybe, like you said, we can come in and with our community partners And also, like I said, we have quite a few people of color who are doing this. RAND's a very flat organization. It's really just researchers, and then with all our, other staff and administrative and support staff, and then just not that many layers of management above that. So as researchers, we can do a lot, and we can band together and put together, like you're saying, do a better job of saying, okay, we do it one-off for each project, but to show that the cumulative work and present that with community partners and get feedback from the community more in general could, like you said, get more awareness in the community of the work that can be done, as well as, I think, more impact for all of us, for the decision maker, policymakers.
Mm-hmm. I want to acknowledge
I see
LV's hand.
I was about to say that too.
Mm-hmm.
I want to tell you something, Peter.
Can we finish?
I just want to say one thing. Back in the 70s and the 80s, I remember being alongside of other applicants and people that were searching for jobs. And they would say, oh, don't apply over there. They use the RAND system. And it was offensive. It was really offensive. So that's all I want to say. I'm done. Thank you for coming, and I've enjoyed your information.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll follow up with you, Cheryl. Thank you. LV?
Let me get my value on. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Peter. I have a question about the RAND Corporation. What are you guys doing to help smaller nonprofits like myself? I have a nonprofit that specifically deals with the reentry and employment. And the lived experience, I was institutionalized for 33 years. I've been out 6 years now, and every day I'm working with men and women getting out of prison, helping them with employment that are not housed. So what are you guys doing to help the smaller nonprofits build capacity and get the resources to facilitate everybody's transition?
Yeah. So in terms of being able to get resources, there's different types of resources, right? Like materials, know-how, things like that. And then there's like the resources that make the world go around, right? The money, the funding. And as a nonprofit organization ourselves, we're not a foundation, so we can't help directly get money. But what we do try to do is try to point out where the priorities are. Where should that go? And hopefully by highlighting the work of smaller nonprofits, we can do that. I think that was one of the outcomes. It wasn't the direct focus of the co-share project, but was really, I think especially for housing, the housing work group was saying to itself, the housing system, right, if there is one in LA County, is just a mess, right? And it's not working. LV, you're muted, so if you want to, I don't know if you want to say something, but it's just a mess. And so what can we do? So there's some structural things we can advocate for change, but then it was like, there's all these smaller programs, nonprofits that are doing stuff that people aren't aware of. So that was one of the major recommendations was, there are smaller nonprofits that are working with landlords to build trusts, to take on, people who are formerly incarcerated and rent to them and give support to those people so that they're successful tenants. There are others that we're preparing people to have their own housing, which if you haven't, had your own housing and been responsible for rent payments, you might not know all the things you have to do. So it's not an easy transition for many people. So focusing on that. The other way that we have, and I know a lot of this is indirect, right, for you. So we do have other resources in terms of that we've done for community nonprofit, which are like handbooks and guides for doing continuous quality improvement in things. That's not something that's going to be useful to you and your organization if you're small, but to mid-sized and larger community-based organizations that don't have that training, those guides can be helpful. It's called Getting to Outcomes. And also just sometimes we're like when we partner in research, that's one of the things we make sure to do, that our partners are resourced to do the work with us. So when we partner with LAM, we didn't say, hey, can you volunteer to do it? We recognize their expertise and their importance and what they bring to the table, and funded them to do the work. Cedric didn't do the work for free, so where we do partner with people, we try, we make sure that they're funded to do their part of the thing. We're not asking for, for people to just partner with us with nothing, because we realize you guys are on even smaller budgets than that. I wish I could say I had something more direct for you. If there were some things you had in mind, I'd be happy to hear them and see if RAND could help in that capacity.
Okay, so I just leave your email from the LAM staff, and I would email you the information.
Yeah, you could get my email from them, or it's just my last name, Mendel, Mendel @rand.org. Yeah, Mendel @rand.org. Or the Cedric could get for you too.
Yeah, give me a call. I'll get you the information. Quick question for you. RAND's primary function is research and analysis, and usually you pull all that information up and get it to the people who actually make the policy, right?
Yes, and that's one of our main functions is we do the research, and then we try to, as much as we can, have impact, get it to the policymakers, brief them, go to community events and policy forums, with our community partners, with Cedric and Cheryl, and help advocate for change and say, this is, there's also, there's data backing this up. This is real stuff. Listen to it, and here are the numbers. Yeah.
So it's real science backed by the numbers, along with your community partners. How receptive usually are the policymakers to the information?
Well, a lot of that, I have to say, is, sometimes it's just a report that, someone puts in the circular file. We've gotten, I would have to say, though, that feedback that I've gotten, like in the Community Partners in Care project, is that it started to get the attention of people and that was focused on depression care, that started to get the attention of the County Department of Mental Health. And they started to change some of their own process to include the community engagement and the specific tools that came out of that. So, and it was adopted by people who initially were not so thrilled about the project. And once they saw that there was a wide range of community organizations involved, and that, so some people are moved by that policy, and others are moved by the fact that it was, this was published, that it actually showed an effect. Some people are, technocrats, they want to see the data. You think this program has an effect, you show me. And I'm sure you get a lot of that in your community. Like, that's a problem with a small nonprofit too. They want your accountability, right? Show me your accountability. That's hard to do, and it takes resources to do it. So when they see that, oh, this program has, effectiveness and science behind it that I can believe, then some things, good things can happen. So
change is slow.
More often. Unfortunately, other times, we work on stuff and it doesn't get, but then the policy changes and the time comes right and people look at that and go, oh my God, that's what we needed. And that happened, that particular community partners in care in New York City. They were trying to change their mental health in that direction, and they picked that up. So, but it does take a lot of work. And so RAND as a research organization, like I said, we're focused on the impact. So however we can, we also do policy forums with state legislatures and as much as we can there, and putting things out. Now everything's social media, website. So we're trying to do that. If you go on our website, I don't know how well we do it now, but we're doing it a lot better than we had before.
I have one more question. Now, how do you guys pick what you're going to research on? How does that information come to say, let's research this or that? How does that come about?
Sure. It usually comes about from, so like I said, it's pretty flat organization. As researchers, no one tells me what to research, but we go after opportunities in areas that we think are important. So we'll apply in community-based work with community partners for federal or foundation research. We have particular areas we work in, so we try to build up a research program, and that's how the new funding for our Center for Housing and Homelessness in LA came about. A lot of us were working in that area and touching on different pieces of it, some more directly than others. I mean, you can't really do any community-based work without touching on those issues in LA, but some were really focused on it, and that built up a program of research where I forgot what family foundation said, you know what, we need this to move faster in LA County. We're going to fund, like I said, I think it was $10 million to make that happen. So, so we're what they call soft money. We don't have endowment. So we're always out looking for the next project. A lot of the project work also comes from community members who we're in partnership with, who say, hey, we need to, I've done that before too, faith-based organizations, we need to do this. And then we go out and say, okay, how can RAND help if we did a project around that? And let's go and get some funding.
Okay. Well, I'm going to put this question out there, but I want to let everybody know we're getting ready to end. This is the last question because we're approaching the end of the hour. And so I had the big smile on my face because I was wondering, I said, wow, I'm wondering, how do they get the questions? But I think this would be something good. I don't know, maybe some people can back me up, and I'll throw this out there. Currently, right now, there is a lot of companies and organizations that are picking up being inclusive. They're bringing in people saying, this is the new title, inclusive, being inclusive for their jobs. But it seems like a lot of it's only inclusive in title. So maybe if the research could be done, how inclusive are these organizations? How are they really being inclusive? I think the research should be done on that. And I think people will probably really be surprised with their agencies that they're saying it, but it's not actually happening. And then I think that would be a good start. So that was the smile on my face. When I was to smile, like, oh, I think that'll be a good place to start for some new research, especially with the climate, because that is something that we're seeing agencies, they're putting that's a job title. But then when I'm talking to the actual people in the community, I'm hearing the same things, that they're talking to managers, and that their suggestions in regards to implementation is being documented, but it's not being implemented. So I think that would be a good place, to start for new research.
I think that's a great, and first of all, that's a great suggestion. Thanks for that. And like I said, internally, we struggle with that too, like a lot of organizations, right? It's easy to get the title, but hard to make the change. The second thing I'll say about it is where we've done the most impact on diversity has been in the military. Through our national security work. and both in inclusion and other things like sexual harassment and things like where we've had lots of impact actually measuring and saying how much change there is and how much real change there is. And I think that's a great topic to actually take some of that work and bring it to the private sector now that they're trying to get on board. So I appreciate that. And
follow up with me and let me know how that works out. I would be very interested to see if that can be a go.
Yeah, so we're getting on to 12 o'clock. I want to thank Dr. Mendel for being on with us, and I really appreciate the presentation. And it was good seeing and talking to you guys. I haven't seen all you folks for a while. I hope everybody is well, and I want you to have a blessed day.
Likewise.
Thank you. Thank you for presenting. Yeah. I just want to say thank you. I really appreciate presenting and the questions. I love the dialoguing with community and keeping RAND, honest and straight. I really appreciate that. So thank you.
Can we have a special meeting follow up on that? You'll let us know, Ms. Dawn?
Sure. Well, I said I would. Yeah. I'll follow up with Dawn. I'll follow up with Cheryl. And then maybe you can, share within your group, or I'm always happy to come back to.